Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing great. We have a great, I guess you could call it a great show. It's a lot of stuff to talk about. We'll try to have fun with it, but we start with something pretty scary, and that is a little insight into who the next generation of Republican leaders could be in the form of some leaked messages. Before I show that to you, it's interesting this news broke today because just yesterday, I had this to say. We were responding to some Republican who made a music video, and it was bizarre, but it reminded me that I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I know it's bad right now. It could get worse. And that's what I'm fearing and trying to sound the alarm about. So this is what I said yesterday, and I'll show you this news.
I don't even have to curse. Let's keep the American dream alive and put an end to all lies. BLM raised billions, and what did they do for black lives? Politicians promise you the whole world, then they backslide. What happened to Hunter's laptop? You know I'm always strapped up. Gun rights are women's rights. Feminists been stole a lie. You can mess around and find out. Play stupid games, win a stupid prize. God bless the whole USA, even the ones who hate me. I'm still fighting for you today, and no super PAC paid me.
America first, America first.
So, the young generation of politicians is getting innovative. Very exciting stuff going on. I actually do, on a serious level, fear. I know we're in a bad era right now, and the modern Trumpism is really frightening. Some of what I'm seeing coming out of younger Trumpism, like younger Maga, is a little bit even more concerning somehow. So just yesterday, that was on my mind, not because that video is whatever, but just more broadly, I have spent years now debating. Often at rallies, it would skew older Trump supporters, and there is so much to be horrified by in doing that. But the people I've talked to that have been even more discombobulated are I like to believe it's a very, very small portion of the country, but this very radicalized group of young MAGA, because they not only have all the different aspects of the extreme part of MAGA that currently exists, but they grew up in an era where if you show whatever algorithm you're on that you're interested in, that it has every incentive to push you further and further and further to the most radical edge of whatever ideology you're subscribing to. And then boom, this news breaks. While I break it down for you, please do, if you appreciate the show, click the subscribe button. It is free, but it supports the work that we do. So this is from Politico. Quote, "I love Hitler. Leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chat. Thousands of private messages reveal young GOP leaders joking about gas chambers, slavery, and rape." All of the greatest hits there. They're ticking them off like clockwork. So these are pretty high up. You'll hear some of the titles as I go through. I can't keep all these names straight, so I won't even try to explain. Here's all the people who will be explained and all their titles, but it'll come up kind of organically in some of these excerpts. You have like a Republican state senator who is a part of the Young Republicans org and that state. And obviously you have pretty associated with the Republican National Committee, these young Republican chapters and states and the National Young Republican Organization. And in some of the chats among leaders high up in these orgs, they were saying some of the most heinous stuff, which again, I think we have the inclination to believe it couldn't get worse than Trump. And I get that. And it could. And when you hear Bannon kind of talk about what he sees MAGA turning into next, it's chilling. And so all that is not to panic us all, but just to serve as another motivator that getting our act together and winning is so important, not just for the next few years, but decades, and addressing radicalization online and kind of what is the source of people turning into this. So leaders of young Republican groups throughout the country worried what would happen if their Telegram chat ever got leaked. But they kept typing anyway, and it did get leaked. They referred to black people as monkeys and the watermelon people and mused about putting their political opponents in gas chambers. They talked about raping their enemies and driving them to suicide, and a lot of Republicans who they believe support slavery. The exchange is part of a trove of Telegram chats obtained by Politico, months of messages, young Republican leaders in the New York chapter, Kansas, Arizona, and Vermont. And it shows an unfiltered look into this, 2,900 pages of chats. Whoever did this reporting, oh my gosh, I salute you. That must have been tragic. At one point, they do a little translation for us. Someone called something mega based, and they said based is a word that people use online to express support for, and having to filter through all of that. I'm sure it wasn't a super young reporter too. And they're like, what is this? Slavery's mega based. What? So Disturbing shared among a dozen millennial and Gen Z Republicans between early January and mid-August chronicle their campaign to seize control of the National Young Republican Organization on a hardline pro-Donald Trump platform. Many of the chat members already work inside government or party politics, and one serves as a state senator. Here's some quotes. Quote, can we fix the showers? Gas chambers don't fit the Hitler aesthetic. Joe Maligno, who previously identified himself as the general counsel of the New York State Young Republicans, wrote back, I'm ready to watch people burn now. Annie Katie? Add one more Katie there. And New York's National Committee woman said, huh? The National Committee woman of New York? In one instance, Walker, who at the time was a staffer for Ort, talked about how a mutual friend of some in the chat dated this very obese Indian woman for a period of time. Junta responded that the woman, quote, was not Indian. Then Samuel Douglas, a state senator from northern Vermont and the head of the state's Young Republicans, said, quote, she just didn't bathe often. In a separate conversation, Junta shared that his flight to Charleston, South Carolina landed safely. Then he offered some advice for his fellow young Republicans. If your pilot, this is him speaking now, is a she and she looks 10 shades darker than someone from Sicily, just end it there, scream the no-no word, Junta wrote. So some of the stuff we've heard from prominent influencers and Republicans and these different activists publicly, you go, what are you saying? That was a weird dog whistle or a disgusting dog whistle. And we've all kind of wondered, but we do, what some of them would say behind the scenes. And I just want to be clear, this is not about saying anyone who supports Republican or anyone who is an activist for the Republican Party is saying this type of stuff. It's obviously a small group of people in this exact series of chats, but some of them are about as radical and extreme and repugnant as you could possibly imagine. And just like we are doing our activism to try to promote the values that we believe in and uplifting everybody and policies that will benefit Americans, there are others trying to build up support and sway within the formal Republican Party orgs that want the next generation to be something a whole heck of a lot worse. And it's working in some cases. And you see, like as an example, Nick Fuentes right now getting a lot more, not mainstream, but closer to mainstream recognition and in some cases accolades that wasn't happening before and that should be concerning to a lot of people. And then he is garnering a really young male audience. And so our responsibility to be effective, not just to have the correct stances and the compassionate stances and the most economically literate stances, etc., but actually to be effective in our activism and our messaging. Because if we leave that vacuum, as has happened with, to now make it a specifically partisan thing, the Democratic Party failing in their messaging to certain groups, that vacuum gets filled. And we don't get to choose who it gets filled by. And sometimes it's people saying stuff like this. When Luke Moisman, the chair of the Arizona Young Republicans, asked if the New Yorkers in the chat were watching an NBA playoff game, Junta responded, I'd go to the zoo if I wanted to watch monkey play ball. Junta also refers to black people as, quote, the watermelon people. This is what some of these young Republican leaders at the top of the Arizona Young Republican org in that case, or some of these, or he was the one who asked the question, I should say, but are talking about and saying when they don't think people are listening. Hendricks made a similar remark in July. Bro is at a chicken restaurant ordering his food. Would he like some watermelon Kool-Aid? Okay, I mean, yeah, I think you get that. I don't have to read every single little quote, but Hendricks was a communications assistant for Kansas's Republican Attorney General until Thursday. He also said in the chat that despite political differences, he's drawn to Missouri's Young Republican organization because Missouri doesn't like F-slurs, being gay folks. In another exchange, Dwyer, the Kansas's chair, informed Junta that one of Michigan Young Republicans promised him the group will vote for the most right-wing person to lead the national organization. Great, I love Hitler, Junta responded. Dwyer reacted with a smiley face. Dwyer, the Kansas's chair. So the Kansas Young Republican chair. Do we need to? This is a lot. Oh my gosh, this is so much. I tried to give you just the notable excerpts from this Politico article, just going on and on. In another conversation in February, Junta talks approvingly about the Orange County Teenage Republican Organization in New York, which appears to be a part of the network of national teenage Republicans, and how he was pleased with its young members' ideological bent. They support slavery and all that shit. Mega base, he said. The term base in internet culture is used to express approval with an idea, often one that's bold or controversial, Politico says. Thank you. So that's what I'm talking about. I don't know what percentage of Republican activists in positions of power would look kindly upon this. Obviously, a lot of condemnations came in, and obviously that should happen. But just to understand what we're working with some of the powers that be, with some of the individuals trying to take over at whatever stage they're at, if they're young Republican, trying to get to the top of their young Republican organization, and how because of a moment that we're in, where I think it comes down to a lot, the combination of social media and that exacerbating social isolation and that combination of factors leading to a lot of, especially young men, being really vulnerable to the likes of these people and their messaging and them giving. And this isn't to, I don't want to overdiagnose because it can sometimes sound like apologia, but it is important that we think, how are the disgusting figures in these chats who themselves have garnered some influence, how are they effective, or influencers like what I referenced with Fuentes, at reaching so many young men? And by the time they're doing this, it's, too far gone, and our job's just to oppose it and to fight it politically. But at some point, these individuals weren't this. And as they talk about, this young teen organization seems pretty radical. We could do something there. It's a reminder that, as I keep saying, what our obligation is in this whole story, this era of America, is so huge, because we could lose a whole generation of younger men to this type of extremism. One exchange, Moisman tells the group that the Spanish came to America and had sex with every single woman. Dwyer writes, sex is gay. Moisman replies, sex, it was rape. Walker says, epic. Okay, I think we get it. This is kind of how it ended. One of the people wrote, if we ever had a leak of this chat, we would be cooked for real, for real. That's what FR stands for. Well, it leaked, so you're cooked. People use the term cooked to mean. And I gave so much crap yesterday to Brylan Hollyhand, who himself is trying to be the next young Republican figure.
What's up, America? Brylan Hollyhand here, about 30,000 feet up. We are on the way to Arkansas.
And maybe now seeing these chats, I should root on him being the guy, because I didn't see him in these chats. Maybe Brylan's the better evil. Not evil, but the better option in our opposition than whoever the heck we just read through at the top of some of the young Republican organizations. And then, I am trying to not just throw out to you a really frightening story, but bring with it some action items. And with those figures, it's just about politically fighting them, as I said. How do we prevent the continued trend that we're seeing of young kids initially, young boys, being sucked into sectors of the World Wide Web where this type of extremist stuff is popularized? And so people lay out different things, right? You have, as I said, social media is causing. It used to be that if you were a Nazi, if you were saying I love Hitler, you'd have to like go to some forest in a really rural area and burn something. Like you'd have to really make some effort to find your fellow Nazis. And the social stigma, if you ever blip that out to the wrong person, would be so horrible. And so, yeah, there were still Nazis a few years ago, obviously, kind of before the prominence of social media, but so scattered. And this is just a kind of a concept of crazy people in general. It was so spread and they couldn't find each other. So the threat they pose in organizing and influencing other people was kind of minimized. But now, wherever you are, you can find your fellow crazy person, and actually social media algorithms drive you to them. And so it's really easy to find your community of Nazis. So that's social media. And then you have social isolation. One of the things people try to kind of diagnose is, as we see more and more data points about young men getting more radicalized, starting really early, one of the factors is that they're not getting community in, and there was a woman in that chat, so hey, this isn't just men. Just in data, it seems to be a more common problem right now. As they're not finding connection and community in real life, they seek it online, and nothing makes you feel more seen and unique, and you have the special little secret as finding a community of folks online who are wildly extreme. That's what the conspiracy theorist thing is all about, as I've explained before, which is the whole world doesn't know this thing that just you and a few other people know, even as some of these conspiracy theorists are now garnering millions of people. But that's the feeling that's so stimulating. Or different extremist ideologies, it's, oh, the source of your problems and why you feel socially disconnected is because of women, or it's because of an attack on white people or attack on men. And it provides some explanation, however extreme and deranged, to the problems that people are grappling with. And so I guess what I'm saying is, if we don't get people to hail love, they're going to hail Hitler. If we don't get people to make love, they're going to make swastikas. That's the world we're in. I mean, truly, with people age like, and I don't, just shut up. Just be an adult on this. 22 to 34-year-olds, especially men, skyrocketing, sexless lives. And I don't exactly follow the line of reason of, oh, I'm not having sex, Hitler. Maybe that's the solution. Or, I can't find a girlfriend, so I love slavery. Like, I don't, but I'm trying to piece it together. And so for us, on a momentary basis, our only solution can be in the war of ideas to battle these ideas. On a systemic basis, we have to make sure that our implementation of policies to strengthen communities and our advocacy for stronger connections, that the hope is that serves as the long-term systemic solution to this problem. So that's my action item. What does that mean in practice? Figure it out yourself. I know. I just don't want to tell you right now. There's a solution. just want to tell you. And I mean, if it's bad now, sorry, this is taking a while. If it's bad now with the current situation of social media, I just saw Sam Altman was like, hey, in December, we're going to roll out age gating more fully. And as part of our treat adult users like adults principle for ChatGPT, we will allow even more like erotica for verified adults. If right now it's bad and people go, I can't get a girlfriend, so Heil, I cannot imagine what it's going to turn into when they realize for 4 months they've had a sexual relationship with their ChatGPT. Yeah, you can put that up, Jane. We do have merch to this effect. But what's annoying is like a lot of times this messaging gets interpreted, especially by right-wing young men, as, yeah, see, girls need to have sex with me more. Then I wouldn't be so radical. Hey, I've met you. You never leave your house. Where are they supposed to even find you? So it's a deep problem, and I do have for people before they got to this stage, and they're just boys living their life and have issues that then can be exploited for radicalization. I have lots of empathy, and I want to address that. I don't think addressing that should be a right-wing exclusive message. Because if we leave people feeling unseen, then the crazies will come along and they'll see them. But then in exchange, they'll take them to a really dangerous place. But if already this is where we're at with the speed, they've run studies of like you just naturally click on certain things on a site, whatever suggested for a certain period of time, and before you know it, you're on wild conspiracy theories, wild right-wing videos. And so how to pierce through, I think it's, you know what I think it is? I think it's just getting everyone to watch this show. That will solve the problem.